Hello, everybody. My name is Samuel. I'll be speaking about the language Uyghur. Uyghur is primarily spoken in China. Now, many of you may think that China is an extremely homogenous country, and it is. It is for the most part. China is made up of primarily Han Chinese. That's the typical kind of Chinese person you will see walking around. Someone who looks pretty much like me. And then there are also 55 ethnic minorities that have been recognized by the Chinese government. And Uyghur people are one of those minorities. The Uyghur language is formally known as Eastern Turkey. It's a Turkic language with roughly 10 to 25 million speakers worldwide. It's primarily in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of far western China. As you can see here on this map, it's primarily spoken in the city of Urumqi and this Xinjiang region, which I have circled, and the area that I've highlighted. Some language characteristics. Uyghur is a little bit different from English. It's a left-branching language, whereas English is primarily right-branching, with the word order of subject, object, verb. Now, the language also displays vowel harmony and agglutination, meaning it has vowels similar to other languages and strings together morphemes without changing sound or spelling. One word like Evler, excuse my pronunciation of this, I'm going to butcher it. Evler Inizden, which literally translates into house, plural, you're from. So the house that you're from. Uyghur uses a Perso-Arabic script, which often gets Uyghur confused for the Arabic language because the writing is very, very similar. So who speaks Uyghur? Primarily the Uyghur language is spoken by those residing in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, which is in China, so that is the largest speaking population of the language. They primarily practice Islam, and actually in appearance they look more Middle Eastern or even Western Eurasian as opposed to East Asian or Chinese. Both the elderly and young children speak Uyghur. It's a native language to the region. However, the language is slowly losing to the national language of Mandarin, despite being one of the largest and most spoken minority languages in China. Like I had mentioned before, roughly 25 million native Uyghur speakers reside in China, according to Wikipedia, but that actually only means 1.8% of all of China speak this language. So that is a very, very small number. Moreover, parents and students are now opting to go to Mandarin-speaking schools because the education is actually better. And the majority Han Chinese that are moving in have started to cause a lot of these racial and ethnic issues to pop up. Some of these social circumstances have been dicey for a very long time, actually. The region itself is a region of ethnic minorities that are far from the central government. So these minorities have experienced a good amount of freedom away from the government. They didn't have a lot of influence before, but now a lot of that influence and the majority people are coming in. And due to that kind of migration of the majority into this region, there have been a lot of hate crimes on both sides committed. And actually, in July of 2009, there was one of the largest riots that have occurred in Urumqi, which is one of the cities that I highlighted earlier. And during that riot, there were over 1,500 people arrested and over 197 deaths that occurred. So what makes this language endangered? Uyghur is slowly dying primarily due to the reason that the majority Chinese have been moving into this region. So the majority culture influence has not only affected the language, but also the minority cultures as well. Because of these majority speaking majority Chinese and majority speaking people coming into the region, the government has been catering more to their need and to their requests. So there have been more Mandarin speaking schools being built, and on top of that, those Mandarin speaking schools are actually providing a better education than the Uyghur speaking schools. But also, even to add insult to injury, the schools are no longer required to teach Uyghur as a class anymore. So it has really been kind of pushing down the Uyghur language as no longer necessary, and that students and children should just be learning Mandarin instead. Along with that, because of the riots, the Han Chinese police have been really encroaching on their territory and have been really on the watch, and many of the people feel uncomfortable and feel like they have committed crimes that they haven't. So the fact that they are one of the biggest majorities, the fact that Uyghur people are one of the biggest minorities actually threatens the Han Chinese majority. Because they don't want them to get any bigger. So regulation and control is the name of the game here. So personally, I do believe that language loss is an inevitable byproduct of socioeconomic development in an area of globalizing nation states, but I don't think that means language extinction. And I feel like that is kind of the path that Uyghur is on. I believe that the fact that this encroaching culture is threatening the language and the culture of these people, it may no longer survive in the near future. Like the other 54 ethnic minorities, their languages are diminishing rapidly, and the population is diminishing rapidly. And it just doesn't make sense. In fact, I feel like if a majority culture and a minority culture are coming together, the majority should actually have to learn the language and the culture in order to do business, just as the minority had to learn the majority's culture and language in order to survive. So I just feel like it has to be a two-way street. So it's extremely sad to see this type of language loss, especially in such a diverse place such as China when you wouldn't expect it. But just the mere fact that when people think of China, they think of such a homogenous state, it really speaks to the fact that China has really been a country that has been pushing down on its minorities and doesn't want them to really breach out and grow and influence the rest of the world. Thank you for listening.